Welcome to our kitchen. Today we prepare an ancient Roman beef roast with shallots from the Reco Quinaria, the widest source for recipes in ancient Rome. We start with ingredients. We need beef, olive oil, garum, shallots, and the spices, long pepper and asafoetida. First, we prepare the sauce with long pepper, asafoetida, garum, and just a little olive oil. This recipe is included in a chapter of the Reco Quinaria dedicated to beef and veal, with several variants. The author recommends it for beef or veal without specifying the cooking method, with the addition of onions, leeks, quinces or taro. We chose to roast the meat, but there are several options, all used in this cookbook. Cut the meat and vegetables into small pieces and stew them with the sauce. Simmer them and pour the sauce on top, or cook them 2 times, simmering the meat, then roasting it in the oven with the other ingredients. We find information about cattle in the agricultural books, in particular in the 6th book of De Re Rustica by Columella, who dedicates many pages to the best ways to breed and feed them, and how to cure their most common illnesses. Cattle are essential in the traditions of ancient Italy. Columella believes that the name Italia derives from the fact that Greeks called Italos the bull, but actually Italos is equivalent to the Latin Vitulus, which means calf. This is just one of the anecdotes that Columella tells about cattle, which was so important in ancient times that it was considered equally worthy of death a citizen who killed a man or a bovine. It is probably an exaggeration, but it is interesting anyway to understand the importance of cattle in the antiquity. For more information about food in ancient Rome, check out our new book, Ancient Roman Cooking, available in English and Italian on Amazon. On our Patreon page, you will find articles and translations of historical sources. In the next days, it will be available the first part of our translation of the Reco Quinaria with notes. To support our work, you can also buy us a beer or purchase our merchandise. You find all the links in the description below. Then we peel the shallots. Shallots are mentioned in a few Roman and Greek sources, in particular by Theophrastus and Pliny, who mentions the Ascalonian onion among other kinds of onions. In the ancient sources we find 2 terms, cepa capitata and cepa pallacana. Cepa capitata is an onion with a big head. Cepa pallacana instead is the scallion. Pliny lists among the kinds of cepa capitata the Ascalonian onion, which is the shallot, called still today scalogno in Italian. For this recipe, however, you can use shallots or other kinds of onion, keeping in mind that the ancient authors describe white and red onions. We arrange the meat in an old pot with the shallots and coat the meat with the sauce. There were many kinds of cows in ancient Italy and the various provinces of the empire, different in size and color. Columella, for instance, mentions white and small animals bred in Campania, others big and white or red bred in Umbria, others heavily built in Etruria and Lazio, others again very strong but ugly in the Apennines. The best fodder for cattle, writes Columella, is the fresh one. Otherwise they can eat vetch, grass peas or hay. Straw nourishes poorly except for millet straw. Other kinds of fodder are barley or wheat, as well as acorns or fava beans. The quantity of fodder depends on the time of the year and the amount of work. In the case of scarcity of legumes, Columella suggests giving the cattle some pomace with the peels, which have the same properties as food and wine, and make the animals shiny, happy, and larger. We cook the meat and shallots in the oven. The cooking time depends on the cut of beef and the variety of shallots. We cook them for about 1.5 hours. If your shallots are small and the cut of beef you chose requires a long cooking time, you can remove them from the oven before the beef is done, to prevent them from burning. But if they are just a bit charred, they are even tastier. Columella, being an author of agriculture, mainly considers bovines as working animals. But we know from other sources, especially the Recucinaria, but also the Edict of Prices issued in the 4th century by Emperor Diocletian, that beef was commonly used as a food, included in the high-end cuisine. In the latter source, beef is among the less expensive kinds of meat, 8 denarii per pound, the same price as goat and mutton or as 8 eggs. Keep in mind that an ancient Roman pondus weighs about 330 grams. Veal doesn't appear in the list, but is quite common in the Recucinaria. We can guess that it costed, as lamb or kid, 12 denarii per pound. Clearly cattle were bred also for milk, used to make cheese, curdle or butter. It is interesting to notice that butter, in the Edict of Prices, costs twice as much as beef, 16 denarii per pound, whereas fresh cheese 8 denarii per pound, the same price as beef, and fresh sheep milk 8 denarii per sextarium, which corresponds to about half a liter. We let the roast rest a few minutes, then cut it and serve it with the shallots cut into halves and a bit of the cooking juices. If you have smaller shallots, you can leave them all. This roast is very simple but amazing. The few selected spices blend perfectly with the flavor of the meat, and garum greatly enhances its natural sapidity, making it incredibly tasty. It would be interesting to try it with taro or with quinces. In this case, we recommend simmering them before roasting them in the oven with the meat. If you're interested in ancient foods and flavors, subscribe our channel and consider supporting us on Patreon.